Good evening, everyone. Paul, can you hear me? I guess he's on. Okay, good evening. Yeah, okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Swanton Village Board of Trustees for Monday, April 12th, 2021. Call to order. The first item on our agenda is our Pledge of Allegiance, and you can all at home join us or wait for us to finish. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. Next item on our agenda this evening is agenda review. Any revisions, changes to the agenda that anybody knows about?
I just got to add executive session
Okay.
for personnel.
Request for an executive session to discuss personnel. Anything else? If not, public comment. Doesn't look like we have too much of an audience tonight. Nobody like to say anything? The next item on our agenda this evening, we have Paul Nolan is going to speak to us about our Highgate Hydro plant with the FERC relicensing update. So welcome, Paul, and you can go ahead anytime you'd like.
Hopefully we won't be interrupted. I have a son who's autistic, and I'm the child care provider tonight.
No problem.
So I apologize if I have to get on something. So just to recap, and to avoid any confusion, because at the same time we have Enosburg's relicensing ongoing. And Enosburg will be filing their final license application at the end of this month. Our final application is due a year from then. It's due April 30th, 2022. The current license expires April 30th, 2024. We have been working on this project and tried collaboratively to work on it with Enosburg and Sheldon Springs. One sec. Come on. Over here.
He wants to speak.
Thank you. Okay. I think my son's going to participate, but so we have to file our final license application in April 30th, 2022. Our plan is to circulate a draft application to the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission for their review and comment in October. At the same time, we will file it with the agencies. The agencies we have put out in 2018 what we call a pre-application document, and the purpose of that is to tell the agencies that we are intending to relicense, tell them what we know about our project, have them come back after some public meetings, tell us what studies they felt we needed to do so that they could do their environmental work and advise FERC on any impacts or need for mitigation. And we did that in 2019. We had our joint agency meetings with them. We had 2 meetings to accommodate Vermont SHPO in November, and before that to accommodate Vermont A&R in October. They came back with study requests. We have given them all their initial studies, except for probably the more difficult ones, which deal with dealing with the bypass reach habitat issues and flows. And there's no way to gild the lily. They came back with some very expensive studies, which we are hoping to avoid. We have put forth recently alternative methods for doing those studies that have substantially reduced costs that would still yield information that we feel is sufficient to satisfy the requirements for relicensing with FERC. A lot of this is driven by a desire of the agencies to embroil the Highgate with Lower Swanton, and the long desire of many in the environmental agencies and groups, going back to even a meeting where we had to talk to them in 2015 with regard to Lower Swanton Dam, where they were coming into your meetings and taking the public session over to argue that you should be removing the Lower Swanton Dam, which has absolutely nothing to do with Highgate, but unfortunately we've had to fend that off. So we have carried a significant budget for that, but I'm hoping since we're in public session, I prefer not to talk about numbers, but I can tell you that I gave Reggie a brief summary with the numbers of where I feel we have the expenditures that we have spent for not only for my services, but for 11 scientists, several of them PhDs. Many of them have worked with U.S. Fish and Wildlife. One has even worked with for my ANR that have been assisting us with these studies. And I feel that the core group of that 11, about 3 individuals, have been pretty responsive to our need of when we need to do things and do them in a timely and economic method. So we expect to do a few more studies this summer on the bypass reach. We've done an analysis of how the operation of Highgate with the peaking mode in place, how that affects downstream flows, and how that affects flow all the way down to Lower Swan. We had to do that one to show them that we feel that it have any consequence the issue, just future operation of the plant. Nutshell, but I can go into more detail if there's specific about. We have not had. We are doing our. Late 80s and 90 when we were putting in the rubber dam. Okay.
Hello.
Hello. I feel that we will.
Hello.
Okay, Wayne, I'll be right with you. I feel that the cultural issues have been already well gone through in the previous reports that we did back in that period. It's basically updating, seeing if there's anything new. I know that we have done a study of erosion in the impoundment area, and that I feel that we are in a good position to occurring. It's not due to the peaking operations of the project that would require further mitigation in the way of additional studies on cultural impacts or modifications of the plant operation. I think one thing, Wham, please. One thing we have to address is a little more on project economics, so that when people come to us and say, "No, we think you need to do some mitigation and recreation," one, we can tell them that what we have done in the past and what we have done and what some of these mitigation measures would cost us. For instance, if we change our minimum flows into the bypass reach, it's not enough to say, oh, that's going to cost us more money. Same thing with aesthetics. We have to be, when they start talking about aesthetics, and Scott, your operator, has given us some good information on how flows in the winter impact the rubber dam, but we need to come back and say, well, cost and ultimately stop. Okay. Other questions other than
Paul, this is Chris Leach. I just a couple of quick thoughts and maybe a question there somewhere, but I mean, Do we get credit for the good stewardship that we've done with the dam? The fact that we've replaced it and we've done constant upgrades to our generation equipment over the years? It's the largest dam in Vermont, and the fact that
Unfortunately,
it seems like in
it's
this current world.
exactly, I think what you fear is that, you do 99 things right and one thing wrong. All they want to do is talk about the one thing wrong. If your group it's the gold standard. You operate the plant so well, it's maintained so well. Anytime I need documents, I can get the documents. I have been doing a lot of relicensings in the Northeast. I can tell you that I have a hard time finding just basic drawings of plants. You have everything. Wilford give you credit. The only thing they give credit right now for is relicensing. We would expect, if we're not doing any significant modifications, we would get a 40. I think we would argue that we maximum license 50 minimum measures that so you've done the some work with the northern forest canoe trails. You've done some work on removing hazards and partial dam, I'm aware of, but that's kind of a hard convinced that just because we operate things that we should have, and just because we do it better than most people, typically are not rewarded for that. They would turn around and say, well, that's what we expect. And we could sit there and say, well, we got people who, haven't touched a turbine blade in 30 years. They have bench shafts that they've been operating with. They have half their generators can't operate at full capacity because they've had to cut so many of them out. No, we don't get anything benefit for doing what we should have been doing.
Well, it's too bad. But just the fact that with the green environment pressure that's happening all through the country, it seems like we should get some credit for the fact that we produce a significant amount of electricity, takes care of our village most of the time, and it's the right thing to do.
Unfortunately, hydro is not viewed as by your own state, which has a climate control or is heavily focused upon solar and wind, and you're lucky if you're treated as a poor stepchild, and that's because of the way the state views it. The solar people, the wind power people do not do anywhere near the mitigation that we have to do. The demonstration that we are giving a public benefit, they don't have to do that. And they come back us and ask us to fix a whole slew of woes and troubles related to the river, and usually the mismanagement of the river by others upstream in industries and or by the agencies themselves, and we get nothing for it. And hopefully there's an opportunity for BEPSA and Reggie and the other village managers to really push Montpelier and say, you're not recognizing what we do for our local communities and how important we are, how important our electrical plant is to local communities to develop. And maybe it makes you too independent in today's political environment to be self-reliant.
Well, I would certainly be willing to work to do that. I mean, this is crazy. Thank you very much, Paul. Good job.
Anybody else?
Yeah, Paul, Neil Spear. So I guess what I'm seeing, I mean, I'm not pointing a finger at anybody, but from what I'm seeing, any naysayer that comes in front of FERC, they have to address it without seeing if they're a bona fide complainer or not. I guess that's a word I could use, bona fide complainer. So does FERC have any guidelines as to who they listen to about their complaints?
Well, FERC has learned the hard way that, pun intended, that they open the floodgates when they listen to everyone without that person having to show some nexus between what they're complaining about. And I'll give you a good example of a lot of the whitewater groups will just come out and say, peaking operations are bad for the environment, and hydro plants that peak are bad. And, that's a very generalized statement. And there is case law that FERC has to follow that says that you have to look at the particular project and you have to make a determination. And that's why we've spent some time on assessing the impact of peaking on downstream flows and river levels. And also that we have done our water quality studies. And I think more importantly, because we can come forward and say, FERC, you have to balance, and FERC is required under Section 10 of the Federal Act to do a balancing of the power and non-power benefits. So you just can't have someone come in and say, I really think you need to take Lower Swanton Dam down as mitigation for just having a dam upstream operating.
Yeah, right.
The biggest problem we have is the state water quality certificate process, because your state agencies are hell-bent to regulate not the discharge of the water. And what we do, because we can show that when the water comes over the spillway, we actually add oxygen to the water and increase the dissolved oxygen level. But they want to regulate the actual uses. So as with Morrisville, you'll see that they say, well, we want you to not pull down the impoundment of this Green River development during the winter because it's important for, fishery resources and loons and loon nesting and so forth. And they go, well, what's that got to do with water quality? And the real problem kind of focuses in like a laser in what you have now with the Vermont A&R proposing changing its standards to really focus in on uses that are very antithetical or openly hostile to dams operating hydropower.
Wow, Chris Leach again, that water behind the dam, the impoundment area, is the greatest energy storage there is. I mean, it's a battery, for God's sakes. Don't they understand that? That's
Well, they won't understand it until everyone goes to electric cars and they have to rely on nuclear power. And yes, they have to go to get their rare earth materials from our friends out in the Far East. And I just don't waste my time trying to argue with the position on just this automatic transfer that we're building this infrastructure and it's all electric charging stations. And you go, who's going to charge it? And I'll give you a good example. There's a project, one of the oldest projects in New York is called the Mechanicsville Project. And it's over 100 years old. It was designed by Tesla and built by Westinghouse. And the entity that now owns that project several years ago had actually struck a deal with Stewart gas stations, coffee shops, where they were actually going to use the hydropower to charge batteries for green power. And they got so much problems with the PUSC, made it just impossible to set up that type of regulatory where you could actually take green power from over 100-year well-maintained plant and use it for electric cars charging stations.
Wow. Anybody else?
Okay, well,
So just one thing. So Paul is going to be sitting in on a meeting, the state of Vermont going through their water quality rules, and he's going to be sitting in on a meeting with us on Thursday with VEPSA. So just stay tuned. So they're changing their water quality rules and
As we go.
not for the better either.
not for the better. No. So Paul will be sitting in on that with us.
So at what point is the quality of human life more important than a fish?
That's
It's a
a
good
loaded
question.
question.
Yeah,
So,
and if state of Vermont is watching, I'd love to hear the answer.
okay, we all
Well,
set?
I think a lot of the things we have to do, we have to reach out and, I mean, when we had the problems with switching from the Tainer gates and a higher impoundment to the rubber dam, and we had a lot of opposition from some local groups. I'm on good terms with them, so I'm not going to mention them now.
Yeah, we
I mean,
know.
we really, pardon me?
We know. We know. Just so
Okay.
you. Yeah, anyway.
I was going to make a poor pun and say, how do you know? The, I mean, we had to get Lay's office involved to really get the Corps of Engineers to get off our back. Now, when we went to repair the dam and replace it, we had Reggie had some quotes from some engineering firms to do the 404 permit, and he was able to do it on his own in 2 or 3 weeks. So some things change, but I really think the education process, and you have to understand that these senators and congresspersons, they use a lot of East Coast people who are very young, and a lot of them are kayakers, and a lot of, I mean, so you have to really, it's not just talking to the senator or congressman, you have to understand who's advising them. And a lot of times the people advising them have never operated a business, have never done anything, have never even run for office. They just got this idea that we're going to be green. And so the outreach program has to be fairly extensive, and probably it would help probably to let people know just at some point, every time we waste 1,000 CF water because someone thinks it'd be nice to have a spill over the dam at 2 a.m. This is what it's going to cost the local people, and ultimately what it's going to cost the ratepayers and your economy.
So I just want to make a final point that since we've been operating that dam or that hydro facility, the president of the Walleye Association says that the Lower Swanton Dam is one of the only areas in the state of Vermont that shows natural repopulation of walleye. So over these years, we've been good stewards of our river, and you can see that on the way we maintain our plant and the way we've been operational for all these years. So, I mean, we do understand, because we do live around the lake and around the river, to be good stewards of our environment, and we have been. So it's proof. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah, amen.
That would be a good person to reach out to, because I can tell you that in the Vermont agency, their view of the world is that there should be walleye going all the way up the river, and they just make some comments that again are totally unsupported, but they want us to prove a negative. Prove that there aren't walleye there, and you go, well, we've never found any, and then they'll say, well, we think we saw one. Well, that's not enough, but that's the way they operate.
It certainly is a frustrating situation, Paul, from all angles. And
Well, I had a full head of hair when I started doing this business.
Me too.
yeah. Well, we thank you for being with us this evening, and good luck on Thursday. And we'll keep track of what's happened after that meeting.
Okay,
So.
I'm gonna take care of my other duties here, and thank you so much for your forbearance.
Okay, thank you, Paul.
Have a good evening.
Good
Thanks,
night.
Paul.
Thanks again.
So, Morrisville has him in retainer, Enosburg and ourselves, so, I mean, he's good at what he does.
Yeah.
And he's been our FERC attorney for many years, so.
Yeah.
He sounds very confident.
Yeah.
Very capable. Where does Sheldon fit into this? I've heard that 3-4 weeks ago that they were involved with
Well,
him.
They have a 25.
He's
megawatt.
helping Sheldon?
We tried to get them into the fold when we were going through our
Yeah.
pad,
Yeah.
and they didn't want to,
So they're doing
play.
this on their own?
Yeah.
He's just watching what's happening.
Yeah.
So he can learn.
So.
Thanks.
Okay, next item on our agenda this evening is to approve and accept the minutes from our March 22nd, 2020 meeting. You have a copy of those in your packet. What's your pleasure?
I would make the motion that we accept the minutes of Monday, March 22nd.
I'll second the motion.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve and accept the minutes from March 22nd meeting. Any discussion, corrections?
No, my only remark is that Tim Smith made some very important points during that meeting
Uh-huh.
about the capability of, and the availability of workforce and how the negative effects of the stimulus has really hurt some of our businesses.
For sure.
I mean, it's not a cliche, it's true.
Yeah. Rightly so. So noted. So all those in favor of the motion to approve and accept the minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion's carried unanimously. Next item on the agenda, approve and accept the village warrants through Thursday, April 9th, 2021. You have a copy of those in your packet. What's your pleasure on the warrants?
I move they be approved.
And I'll second.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve and accept the village warrants through April 9th. Any discussion, questions about the warrants? Adam? No questions?
No questions?
Okay, all those in favor of the motion to approve and accept the village warrants signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion is carried unanimously. Item number 8, discussion on a letter to the state of Vermont regarding brush pile establishment. Reggie, I'm
Yeah,
sure
so
you're going to
Where's
enlighten us.
okay, for signing? So basically, you know, the issues that we're having at LaFar Street
Yeah,
with the wetlands and stuff, so obviously it limited our space to be able to do leaf collection and branch collection and everything else. Well, we had another piece of property across from over John's Bridge where our cornfield that we have, is it Bordeaux's?
Yeah.
Bordeaux's are using right now. There was a little piece that we actually had our environmental guy look at it and mapped it out where we're away from the buffers, so we don't get in trouble again. So that's where the brush is going. So the brush,
Brush, branches, tree limbs, no huge trees.
yep, no
but
more
just,
stumps.
Branches from a windstorm or whatever is all gonna go to the Route 7 property.
Yep.
And leaves will go to
LaFar.
LaFar Street, brush pile.
So basically what this letter does, it reestablishes our area where we put our brush. And when we do burn it, it gives us authorization to be able to burn
okay.
also.
So this is a requirement of the state.
Yes. Yeah, because we had a complaint. It was the first time we burnt in that area, and there was some wood chips in there which smoldered quite a bit, bothered some of the neighbors. They called the state's enforcement. The state's enforcement came in and inspected the pile. They said the pile's good. I had another person from the state call up, and they said, well, it's been inspected. You just need to have this permit now because you've relocated your brush pile. So.
What is the issue with the one on LaFar Street? Is it because of the wetland issue that
Yes.
somebody says is there?
So back when Project 10 was put in, so the permit for Project 10 was to reestablish that area, the staging area, back into a Class 2. So the VEPSA held that permit, and somehow the mitigation of that permit to bring it back to a Class 2 was not followed through. So fast forward, I got here, Bourne's Energy went to go down there for a pilot or a satellite fill station, and they applied for permits, and A&R comes up and says, well, wait a minute, this is supposed to be in a class, turned back to Class 2. So that's where we are now, restoring it back into a class.
But does that mean you can never use it again for
Correct.
brush?
Correct,
Why not?
because we had to bring it back to wetlands.
Even that
But that's
section?
high ground.
So
All that little-
there's an area, so it was all filled in, and then
Okay.
there's an area now that we can still use for mulch. And if you go down there now, you'll see the area that we're able to use is closer towards the road.
Well, even as it was only 100 by 100.
Doesn't matter. That's what the VEPSA agreed on for their state permit, and they didn't follow through with it, so now we gotta follow through with it.
As long
But
as we have
the
another
state,
place, I
the
guess it's
state didn't
okay,
even know
but-
about it. The state didn't even know about it till we, wanted to change the issue.
Yeah, so we changed our use of it by trying to bring Borns in, so bad me, trying to bring a business so they can
Yeah,
expand.
gee,
Yeah,
you
so-
don't want that.
So the deal is, VEPSA would pay the fines for the wetland buffer zone issue, and the village would do the work and take care of that. So we're probably 90% there.
I'll have to take, we're right up, take a look. I haven't been up there since October or November.
Yeah, you gotta come up, take a look.
Signs, yeah.
So, is the public generally aware of no brush up there?
I think,
It's big signs, two big
Yeah,
signs.
they call. If they see the signs, if they go up and see the signs, they have a pile of brush on their truck, they'll call us and then we redirect them to resend it. So
It's
done
working
really
out
good.
then?
But you can also leave garden debris, leaves and garden debris at the brush.
Yeah, anything that's compostable, I
Yes.
suppose.
and so we do compost up there, so what we're doing
Yeah.
is, when we
Yeah.
do our sidewalks, we got that good fertile topsoil, and we use that to, when we do our sidewalks and
Mhm.
put the seed down, and the stuff is up in 2 weeks, it seems like.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
Okay.
that's good for the public to know that we have this other area, or new area, shall
Yeah.
we say.
So
There's no sign down there, though. I think you got good signs up there. I went
on,
up on
Route 7?
They're working on them.
Okay, you're gonna have signs.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was painting them last week. I think.
Well, there's some signs down on the pile of what to put where, but there's nothing up by the road.
Yeah, so when we rake our racks up in Highgate, we have to put it in a trailer and haul it away. We're not allowed to put it back into the river. But if a pile piles up, when we open our sluice way, and it flushes back down behind the dam, that's okay.
But
If
you
we
know,
take it out, we can't put it back in.
But that wood coming down the stream is the natural source of wood. Why do you have to take it out of the river?
If it plugs up the.
I understand that
yeah.
part, but
Why can't we
put
put
it
it-
back in the river where it was intentionally,
Throw it below the dam. Let it come down in front of my house.
It's one of those.
sometimes this is illogical.
It's another law of
It's a
the state
bulldog.
of Vermont that you can't understand.
It's illogical, actually.
I agree.
Most of them are.
Most of them are.
Well,
You
that's
wanna,
why.
you wanna get your blood pressure up? Go to the Vermont Legislative website.
Oh, I don't like to see it.
Oh, my God.
So anyway, we don't need any,
No, we just,
Action
you
on
guys,
that.
you guys need to sign that letter.
okay.
You want a
Yeah.
motion?
I think just by signing it, but yeah, probably you can have a motion.
I move that we sign the letter to the state, telling them we have a new place for our wood piles.
And I'll second.
Okay, the motion has been made and seconded to have the trustees sign the application for brush pile establishment to the state of Vermont. Any more discussion on this issue? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion's carried. Item number 9, any other necessary business?
No, sir.
Nothing, Adam?
Nothing tonight.
Oh,
I do,
Gene?
a couple of things.
Couple things.
We did extensive archaeological work up at the falls in the late 80s. And that, they're telling me that an archaeologist back then didn't know what he was doing, and today they do. That's it for now. I've got another question for later, maybe. We'll see how things go.
Okay.
Chris?
One quick thing again is the equipment tax that we collect. I'm against that. Do your business, do you pay that tax?
No,
But you have equipment.
yeah.
Well, that's my point. We collect a significant amount of money, what, $30,000 or something?
Is it about,
So I'm also 35,000 on the grand list.
Okay, well, here's my point. It's punitive to a business because they can depreciate it, but it's a non-incentive to buy better, new, upgrade equipment for whatever your business is, whether it's carpentry tools or whether it's machine tools at another industry. We want to encourage business. They already pay tax on their real estate. And quite frankly, any businessman or business worth their salt doesn't pay any tax anyway. They just pass that cost on to their customers, either in their equipment or in their service. Guarantee you that's all part of their rate structure. So, and then there's a cost to try to make it fair. And it sounds to me like it's probably not fairly administered. That
I had a
a lot
couple.
of businesses that have X and Y and Z, I know it's not a lot of money, but
On the
I
other
think we
hand-
need to rethink it.
I don't think so. Because if you take that tax away from them, it's gonna go on your shoulders.
It already is.
No, it's not.
Sure it is. You're already paying it when you buy stuff from them,
Well,
or anybody does.
in that point of view, I had a question for Diane. Do you know how much the town collects?
It would be significantly.
There's still a hell of a lot more, so you just can't
But I
be for it or against it without doing further studies.
Well, I want to
Yeah.
look into it, but I've asked other people, I asked a couple of St. Albans people that are in the know, and I don't think they have a similar tax.
Now, do you know anything about
I
that?
don't know because, you know, that comes from the lister's office. They put it on the grand list, so we get.
So we do it, yeah, we obviously have to. We don't have
And
a
it-
choice. We have to use the listers.
And the
Yeah,
issue that came up
So the
from the
listers
mechanic
really
shop
wants to decide.
7 or 8 or 10 years ago is the same issue, and I thought I haven't looked back through our minutes, but I thought we killed it back then.
I'd have to talk to Jim Pratt about it.
Say again?
We'd have to talk to Jim Pratt.
I would, he could even come to a
or
meeting
one
and
of the
tell us
listers, yeah, I mean, if it's.
Well,
privately or
Well,
separately, I don't.
I
care.
just want things to be fair. One, I don't think it's fair because I don't think it's administered across the board. Some businesses pay it and some don't.
That's
The
not
newer
right.
businesses
That's not right.
are paying it. Okay, but then somebody has to go and figure out what's taxable and what isn't, and then what it's worth. And then a good accountant will just, drop its worth year for year for year, and nobody really accounts for, is that still fair across the board? And there's, the cost of actually going out and trying to keep this thing fair. I'd like to
Well, it
look
may
at
not
all
be-
that and see if
It may
it's
not be-
actually
It may
working.
not be fair, but let's find out what the rest of the state is doing.
Yeah.
I don't want to.
Lynn, do you have a take on this?
Oh, no,
willy-nilly.
I'm saying, I'm not saying, I don't think we have the authority to do it right now.
No,
But I'm saying,
We
let's look at it and think about it. If you want to encourage business in our local area, it's one more thing we can say, you're not doing it. And again, any business worth its salt is not paying taxes. They're passing that cost on in their goods and services.
I disagree with that, but that's your opinion, so.
Well, then you're stupid, because that's an expense. You can't write it off.
Nip this.
You can't. So you have to account for it. To be able to pay it, you gotta bring money in. So it's gotta be part of your rate structure.
Okay, we've had enough on this issue.
So Lynn, do you
Anybody else?
got anything to say on that?
Equipment taxes used to be very, very popular in towns. It's my understanding that a lot of towns have gotten away from it, because it's hard to collect and, if you go through the tax sale process, it's difficult. But when I was in public accounting, I used to there was a form that a lot of towns would send out, because our office, complete a lot of those forms right along with our clients' tax returns and get them remitted back to the towns that they were based out of.
But we don't do that now, do we?
I don't know how the town of Swanton does it. They maintain the grand list, so I don't know how they get the equipment grand list values.
Each percent of form, correct?
You do send forms?
The town's listers send a form to all the businesses and they have to fill it out and return it to them.
I'd like to see one of those. Okay.
Best thing you can do is go over to see Jim Pratt and have him explain the process to you.
I understand
Maybe-
the process. I'm just saying, I don't think it's fair, no matter what you say. If our goal is to attract businesses and make, life easy for those guys, it should go away.
Okay, anything else?
I
Greg?
just, so the Doughboy repair started today.
Yeah,
Yeah, I saw
And
that. Yeah, I noticed.
Joel was up there to
Yeah.
talk with Sean Chevalier. We're applying for a structures grant that is due the end of this week through regional planning to help out with the bridge repairs. So that's going on right now. And I had another email from Chris Yates asking about wastewater down on McQuam Shore. And I did talk to Wayne Elliott about it, and he says, for one, you got too many irons in the pot right now. He says with the river crossing and your inventory for the wastewater lines, the water lines, the curb stops, and then the wastewater plant review for the phosphorus. You got too many irons in the pot. And he says there's no way that I could sit down and handle all of these plus do an evaluation of the McQuam Shore feasibility, but just from understanding how the airport project is going, that area would have to be forced main, and I don't know how you connect to a forced main for wastewater.
Yeah.
If he
So
wants to pay for it.
it would be expensive, is for sure.
Pump station.
Yeah. One of the things, people down there would have to write a petition saying, my septic is failing, I want to get on municipal. So then,
But we don't have municipal down there.
correct.
And the problem is providing it. And to provide it is, I'm talking a lot of money.
Yeah. Yeah, because of the location where our plant is.
You'd have to have a pump station, maybe more than one.
I was gonna say.
Yeah,
probably
forced
two.
main.
yeah.
Okay, that's all I have.
Thanks. Anything else? If not, I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session to discuss personnel.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Motion's been made and seconded to go into executive session to discuss personnel. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion's carried. We're in executive session. Village trustees have come out of executive session. We discussed a couple of personnel issues, didn't make any decisions, and I see no further business in front of this board this evening, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting of the Swanton Village Board of Trustees.
So moved.
I'll second.
So we have a motion and a second to adjourn this meeting of the Swanton Village Board of Trustees for April 12th. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, we adjourn this meeting. Thank you for your attention this evening.